41 years of marriage collapsed in an instant after a single conversation. I am 59 years old. My wife Lenore is my same age. We had been together literally since childhood. School love, a wedding right after graduation. Everything followed the classic script. We raised 3 wonderful daughters, built a life and careers, achieved everything we had strived for. I sincerely believed we had turned a dream into reality. That Tuesday started as usual. I woke up around 7 in the morning, but Lenore was not in bed, which was strange, because she likes to sleep in a little longer. Coming downstairs to the kitchen, I saw her already dressed. She was sitting at the table with a cup of coffee, looking extremely tense. My wife said she had an early meeting and that we needed to have a serious talk in the evening when she returned around 5 o'clock. That immediately made me nervous, but she left before I could ask a single question. So that you understand the depth of this betrayal, let me tell you a little about our past. My name is Garrett Holloway. Lenore and I have known each other since we were 7 years old, from elementary school. We started dating at 15 and haven't been apart since. Neither of us ever had other partners. We never even kissed anyone else. We were each other's first in everything. Together we went through college, crammed into a tiny studio where a bed and a table barely fit, and worked odd jobs to make ends meet. My education was paid for thanks to military service. Her parents helped her. Starting a family during our student years was not an easy thing, but we managed. Our oldest daughter, Bryn, was born while we were still in school. She is now 37, a successful family law attorney, raising 2 children and working at a prestigious firm in another state. The middle one, Kelsey, just turned 35. She works as a deputy school principal in Washington, D.C., is single and completely devoted to her career. The youngest, Paige, is 34. She is married to a police officer, stays at home, and adores her 2 little ones. Our daughters have always been the most important thing to us in the world. After graduation, I built a career as a risk analyst at a large insurance company. Over the decades, I rose to a senior position, helping clients assess business threats and develop strategies to prevent them. It was a responsible job that paid well. Lenore taught physical education for a long time, then moved to part-time administrative work, which gave her more free time. We both always stayed in excellent physical shape. I go to the gym 3 times a week, play golf, and swim in the pool. But Lenore is literally obsessed with fitness, which sometimes even scared me. 5 days a week, she is at the gym, without exception. Daily long-distance runs, strict tracking of every calorie and every step. Honestly, for her age, she looks incredible, better than many women half her age. She weighs exactly the same as on our wedding day, despite having given birth to 3 children. In her youth, she was dazzling, one of those beauties whom passers-by would turn to look at. And even now, she still draws stares. Men half her age constantly check her out, and I would be lying if I said that didn't flatter my ego. At the same time, she always behaved decently and reservedly, never giving any reason for suspicion. At least, that's what I thought until that day. I was sure our marriage was an unshakable rock. We constantly communicated, held family councils, planned the future together, and solved any problems together. Our intimate life was also wonderful. We remained close 3 times a week even after all these years. She joked that she would never leave me because she would be too lazy to train someone new. We laughed about it together. I considered us living proof that young love can last forever. That evening I came home from work early, feeling curious and a little anxious. I thought maybe she wanted to discuss vacation, retirement plans, or something related to the kids. But when I saw her car in the garage, my anxiety increased. Something was wrong. Lenore was sitting at the kitchen table. Drinks were already poured. She looked unusually nervous and kept rubbing her knee. That's her long-time habit when she's under a lot of stress. She asked me to sit down and listen to her to the end without interrupting. Her voice sounded firm, but with a noticeable tremble. She demanded that I remain calm and not throw, as she put it, childish temper tantrums. That phrase should have been my warning of just how bad things were. I nodded, feeling a foreboding of doom tighten in my chest. Thoughts raced through my head. Someone is sick? Something happened to the kids? Financial ruin? She started by saying that she loves me more than anything in the world, that I am the only one in her heart, and there have never been other men. But I already felt the approach of a crushing but. And then came what destroyed everything. She admitted that she had been thinking about this for months. She needed to try dating other men to understand what she had missed all these years. According to her, this wouldn't be forever. maybe just 6 months, after which she would return to the role of a devoted wife and would prove her love to me every day. She said this as if she were asking for permission for a sabbatical or continuing education courses, not for an affair. I tried to speak but couldn't make a sound. The pain in my chest flashed instantly, as if my heart were being squeezed in a vice. Sharp waves of pain began to radiate into my left arm. My head spun. The room swam before my eyes. I couldn't inhale, no matter how hard I tried. The last thing I remember was Lenore's expression changing from defensive to mortally frightened when she realized something terrible was happening. Then darkness. I thought I was dying, and part of me even hoped for it. I woke up in the hospital. There were tubes everywhere, monitors beeping steadily, and a fierce burning in my throat. A nurse told me that I had suffered a massive heart attack, which doctors call a widowmaker, because surviving it is extremely rare. It was 3 in the morning. She said the doctor would come in a few hours to discuss my condition, and added that my survival was a miracle. If the ambulance had been delayed even 5 minutes, I would be dead. When she asked if I wanted to see visitors, my wife and daughters, who had spent many hours here, I shook my head vehemently. Grabbing a notepad, I wrote in large letters that I did not wish to see anyone, especially my wife. I even asked about the possibility of a do not resuscitate order, because at that moment, I didn't care whether I lived or died. What was the point? My whole life had been a lie. The woman I had loved since youth wanted intimacy with others. The nurse was shocked by my request for a DNR, but promised to pass along my words. I spent several days in the hospital room, unable to sleep. I analyzed the situation. This is my job, assessing risks, identifying problems, and finding ways to solve them. I applied that method to my own catastrophe. What were my options? First, to let her go and hope she would come to her senses, and everything would return to normal. Second, to try to talk her out of it, to beg her not to do this, explaining how it was killing me. Third, to immediately end the marriage and try to build a new life. And fourth, to simply give up. The last option seemed the most attractive at that moment. Later, the doctor came and explained that the heart attack was caused by a complete blockage of the left anterior descending artery. He confirmed that if Lenore had not called 911 immediately, and if the paramedics had not arrived so quickly, I would not have survived. The doctor also explained that although severe emotional stress was the trigger, health problems had been building for years due to genetics and high cholesterol that I had ignored. When I asked if psychological trauma could have triggered the attack, trying to understand whether my wife had killed me with her admission, he answered diplomatically. According to him, the stress pulled the trigger, but the gun had been loaded for a long time. Hearing the details of our conversation before the attack, the doctor finally understood why I had banned visits and asked for a DNR. He insisted that I needed to stay in the hospital for a few more days, as rest and recovery were critical. He also strongly recommended seeing a psychotherapist, because depression after such heart attacks is common, especially with family drama. He couldn't solve my personal problems, but he could keep me alive while I sorted them out myself. That same day, I heard a commotion in the hallway. Lenore threw a real tantrum because they wouldn't let her in to see me. She demanded to know my condition, insisting on her rights as a legal wife, becoming increasingly aggressive. Security had to be called to escort her out of the building. When she was told that I had personally forbidden any medical information from being shared with her and had banned visits, I felt a fleeting taste of victory. It was petty, but it gave me some sense of control over my own destiny. At night, when I woke up after a long sleep, a nurse named Beth came in to see me. We started talking, and unexpectedly, I opened up to her. She listened attentively and without judgment. I said that sooner or later I would have to talk to my wife, but I wanted to wait until I was physically and mentally stronger so that I wouldn't break down during the meeting. She suggested that I first talk to my daughters, and I immediately agreed. Then I was struck by a new frightening thought. Did the daughters know about their mother's plans? Did they know for months while I lived in ignorance? Lenore was especially close with Kelsey, our middle daughter, so she could easily have confided in her. Or maybe she had already given them her version of events after my heart attack, portraying herself as the suffering party. When my daughters came, I spoke with each one privately. I told them how much I loved them and how happy I was to be alive. I was not ready to discuss their mother. Paige, the youngest, mentioned that Lenore felt responsible for my condition, but didn't go into details. She said their mother promised to explain everything to them the next day. Bryn and Kelsey, who had come from other states, said they had taken time off to care for me and make sure I wasn't alone during this difficult time. Seeing my daughter's care, I realized something important. Whatever happened with Lenore, however our marriage ended, life wouldn't stop. It would be harder, more painful, and much lonelier than I could have imagined. But it would continue. The world would keep spinning, and I would have to find a way to move forward. The girls decided that I would recover at our home, and Lenore would temporarily move in with Paige's family. Bryn and Kelsey planned to take turns staying with me, monitoring my medication, diet, and lack of exertion. The doctor predicted a return to normal life in about 6 months, provided I strictly followed the regimen. I was very hurt that during the first 2 weeks of my being home, Lenore did not reach out once. No call, no message. I wondered, had the daughters told her not to bother me, or was she actually using this time to go on those very dates she had dreamed of? The thought that she was having fun with others while I was recovering from a heart attack caused by her confession made me nauseous. I decided to talk to Kelsey first, because she was the closest to her mother. I asked her directly how long she had known about Lenore's desire to date other men. My daughter avoided my gaze and eventually admitted that they had discussed it 3 or 4 months ago. 3 or 4 months! Anger boiled up inside me like lava in a volcano. I felt myself losing control. My hands began to shake. I needed to calm down so I wouldn't say too much. I apologized for raising my voice and said that it was unbearably painful to realize that I had completely failed to notice Lenore's unhappiness in our marriage. I felt like a terrible husband who had lived with his eyes closed while his wife suffered in silence. However, Kelsey stated that her mother just wanted to experience something new before it was too late, and that supposedly shouldn't affect our bond. I was shocked. How could her intimacy with other men not affect me? Kelsey argued that my love should be strong enough to support Lenore in this decision, because she had devoted her whole life to the family and now deserved this for herself. Then she landed another blow, saying that at 59, her mother's interest in younger men was quite understandable. It was then that I realized Lenore's desires were purely physical. Kelsey even claimed that it wouldn't be cheating if I knew about it in advance, which was exactly why her mother tried to discuss it with me. We went in circles for another 10 minutes, never reaching an understanding. For every argument I made about pain, she had a counter-argument. She dismissed every expression of my suffering as excessive traditionalism or a misunderstanding of modern relationships. Kelsey made it absolutely clear. She fully supported her mother in this madness. Eventually, I had to stop the conversation before I completely lost control and said something that could not be taken back. I told her, as calmly as possible, that I could not accept Lenore dating other men. That was absolutely unacceptable to me. As we hugged goodbye, I secretly hoped that Kelsey would either never tie herself to marriage or would be completely honest with her future partner about such beliefs before the wedding. I had a hard time imagining a man who would agree to those terms. The conversation with Bryn went completely differently. She entered the room already angry, with a burning face and clenched fists. My daughter exclaimed that she couldn't believe what her mother was doing to our family. I tried to calm her down, reached for her hand, saying that this was only between Lenore and me. But Bryn was relentless. She passionately argued that one person's infidelity destroys all family unity. This betrayal ripples out, affecting everyone. In her opinion, her mother had been unfaithful to the whole family, not just me. I noticed that she spoke about a completed infidelity, not a potential one, and asked if she knew something more. Then Bryn told me what I had so feared. She said that Lenore went on dates while I was in the hospital, fighting for my life. My daughter suspected that it had all started even before my heart attack, that her mother was laying the groundwork, making acquaintances, and perhaps forming emotional connections. Although Lenore claimed there had been no physical intimacy yet, she was clearly emotionally involved, constantly texting, going to cafes and on dates, dressing up in ways she hadn't for me in many years. Honestly, I wasn't surprised. Lenore had always been independent and strong-willed, but I couldn't understand why she had called for help during my attack. Bryn and I discussed our state's divorce laws for a long time. In a no-fault state, all property is simply divided equally, 50-50. Bryn, with her experience in family law, suggested considering a formal separation if I wasn't ready for a full break. That would give me time to think things over and make the right decision, but I honestly answered that it wouldn't change anything. Trust was undermined, the marriage was effectively over, and no amount of time apart would fix that. Bryn mentioned something that worried me. Although Lenore couldn't prevent a divorce, she could deliberately drag out the process, file motions, and contest every detail. That caused me anxiety, because I wanted to end everything as quickly and cleanly as possible. My daughter promised to send me contacts for excellent attorneys who could help me handle any difficulties. The conversation with Paige came down to trying to calm her down, because she was in complete despair. My daughter wept uncontrollably. Mascara ran down her face, and through her sobs, she begged me to bring Lenore back home, to forgive her, and to give her another chance. Seeing my youngest daughter in such a state was painful. I gently reminded her that I had not asked her mother to leave. Lenore was free to return at any moment. The house belonged to both of us. It was her choice to stay away. Then I asked the question, the answer to which I already knew, but wanted to hear confirmation. Had her mother gone on dates after I was hospitalized? Paige just nodded bitterly. Tears streamed down her cheeks faster than she could wipe them away. When I asked about the frequency of these meetings, she quietly admitted that it happened almost every night. Almost every night while I recovered from a heart attack. Paige tried to reason with her mother, directly calling her actions cheating, but Lenore stubbornly insisted that it wasn't, because there was no physical intimacy. Besides, she claimed, she had warned me in advance of her plans, which in her eyes made the situation acceptable. Before Paige left, I asked her to tell her mother that I was feeling better and that she could come back. I insisted she do so immediately, because Paige was on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and her mother's presence might help her. I finished the conversation and sat in silence, digesting everything I had learned from my 3 daughters. 3 different views of the same situation, and only one of them understood just how wrong this all was. I spent the rest of the day carefully organizing my notes and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. By nature and profession, I am a strategist, so I wanted to be fully armed. I had talking points, financial documents, and logical conclusions ready. But, as they say in the Army, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. That is exactly what happened. All my preparation went out the window in the first 30 seconds. That evening, Lenore didn't just enter the house. She burst in shouting, "Where are you?" Seeing me at the kitchen table with papers spread out, she didn't give me a chance to speak. No questions about my health, no apologies or remorse. Instead, she launched into a passionate, as if pre-rehearsed speech, declaring that there would be no divorce and that we would stay married, no matter what I thought about it. My wife had always been interested in history, especially the American Civil War period, and at that moment, I realized she was applying classic military tactics to me. She went on the aggressive offensive, though by all rights, she should have been defending herself and begging for forgiveness. She caught me off guard and completely suppressed my defenses. Before I could muster a single argument, I found myself in bed, completely exhausted, while Lenore calmly dressed beside me as if nothing unusual had happened. She matter-of-factly said that tomorrow she would return with all her things so that we could continue living. When she headed confidently toward the door, I managed to whisper hoarsely, "Thank you for calling the ambulance that day." She paused, nodded, and answered almost irritably that of course she called for help, because we are in this together for a long time, for better or for worse. Then she told me to rest, hinting that we needed to catch up on intimacy. Gathering the last of my strength, I said firmly that if she crossed the physical line with anyone else, our marriage was over. No discussions and no second chances. She stopped in the doorway, then turned her head slightly and replied defiantly, almost mockingly, "We'll see." Then she left, leaving me with a feeling of defeat and manipulation. Over the next few months, everything seemed to settle into a new routine, though it was a perverted version of normal life. She continued to go on dates. We never mentioned my ultimatum again, pretending it never existed. She didn't share details, didn't say where she was going or who she was meeting, but would matter-of-factly announce that she was going out for the evening and would be back late. Usually this happened once or twice a week. Despite her disheveled appearance when she returned, she never smelled of another man's cologne or anything that would indicate physical intimacy. After taking a shower, she would lie down next to me and continue her attempts at closeness, as if everything were fine. I resigned myself to this strange situation, reasoning that if I was destined to die from another attack, this wasn't the worst option. I was absolutely sure she wasn't being physical with others, until one night destroyed that illusion for good. She came back much later than usual, around 2 or 3 in the morning. I was sitting up in bed, unable to fall asleep without her. I heard the garage door open, the click of heels on the tile, the creak of the stairs. When she entered the bedroom, our eyes met in the dim light. In that same instant, I understood everything. Without a single word, it became clear what had happened. She knew that I understood. She knew that I realized she had finally crossed the line. Lenore looked away, and without saying a word, headed to the bathroom, throwing over her shoulder that it was all temporary, and not to attach any importance to it. As soon as the water started running, I took a pillow and went to the guest room. I locked myself in, and even pushed a heavy dresser against the door, barricading myself inside. I didn't think she would come after me, and I was right. That wasn't her style, to chase or beg. That night and all the next morning, we didn't say a word to each other. I couldn't close my eyes, mourning the final collapse of my marriage. My mind was occupied with planning the future. In the following weeks, we became just roommates. We remained polite, but lived our own lives. I knew she left several more times, but I wasn't sure what she was doing. I permanently moved into the guest room and was usually already asleep by the time she returned. Surprisingly, I found peace in this planning. I became calmer and more confident, without a trace of self-pity or doubt. I didn't blame myself or think I could have done better. For me, marriage is a contract, and she broke it, not me. She never talked about her problems. She just made decisions alone. I could understand her desire to gain new experience. That's a natural human feeling. But she didn't give us a chance to work on it together. She unilaterally made a decision that led to the breakup. Looking back, I realize I was too passive. Over all those years, I never once told her that her behavior was unacceptable. I let her dictate the terms of our life because her happiness was more important to me than anything else. Before our wedding, we clearly discussed expectations regarding fidelity. The boundaries were clear. I had always been faithful and never even thought about cheating, expecting the same from her. Her betrayal alone destroyed our relationship. Several weeks after her first physical infidelity, I was mentally ready. One evening, when she was about to leave, I waited for her at the table. When she returned, I calmly said we needed to talk. She tried to brush me off, citing tiredness, but I insisted. She sat down across from me, clearly angry and irritated.